Welcome to SPJIMR Institute of Management and Research. For those of you who might be somewhat familiar with SPJIMR, either by way of having looked up our website or otherwise, you'd be aware that our mission includes influencing practice and value-based growth. So as part of this twin aims of influencing practice and promoting value-based growth, it follows that one of our learning and teaching goals is to develop socially sensitive and value-based leaders, which means that one of the important things that we need to do is to ensure we pay more than the normal importance to our process of admissions. It becomes imperative that we bring in the right kind of people so that in turn the managers we deliver to society fit in with the mission and the goals. In terms of the admission process itself, having realized that we need to be particularly careful about it, this might be an opportunity to touch upon a few aspects by which our process works, the admission process. For one, and I guess it makes sense to start with the test scores. So test scores matter. I think there's no denying that, and there are no two views about that. Test scores matter, but they don't matter in as much or to the same extent as perhaps it does in other places. In other words, it's not as if a predominant weight is attributed just to your test scores. Test scores serve as a good filter to get in people with a certain minimum level of achievements on that front, and of course consistent academics also matters. Having said that, I think what we do a little beyond that is what is more important to recognize. The forms that you fill out fairly painstakingly are important because they comprise or they include some essays which matter a lot. Apart from the other information on your academics and consistency, etc., which are captured in your forms, there is also those this qualitative questions and the essay type responses that you give, which are looked at carefully. As one of our colleagues likes to put it, we like to smell the forms because the forms say a lot, and in fact, in conjunction with when you meet the applicant, it helps to give a much larger and a wholesome picture. Which brings me to this point about the interview process itself. Now, relative to other places, at SPJIMR, we lay a lot of emphasis on the interviews. So for one, we start this interview process a lot earlier. It gives you more opportunities to plan your interviews and be less stressed and so on. So the interview process runs for a longer period. It starts earlier. The interviews are such that we intend and we aim and we end up meeting a much larger proportion of the applicants that we're interested in. We do that because we want to ensure that we reduce the chances of losing out the right candidate. And our feeling is that unless you meet the candidate, it's difficult to make an assessment because we are more interested in the person and not just the scores. So we meet a lot more candidates. We also have more than one round of interview and we also have what we call this group interview, a little different from the PI that many people are accustomed to. And the process and the way the interviews go, the group interviews are also very distinct. All in all, an exercise which we believe and we have seen over the years helps us to identify the persons who got the best fit with what the institute intends to turn out in terms of the kind of managers. So it's this whole mix of your scores and the way you come across and you deal with the interviews, and some of your peers will tell you those interviews are not the standard ones that you can crack because it's more open-ended and it's an assessment of trying to understand really the kind of person whom you are. So these are some of the heads where the process is a little different from other places, and as I mentioned a little earlier, it's for very good reason, because we believe that this admission is particularly important, and that's going to determine to a large extent the extent of success that we have in turning out the kind of managers we're interested in and essentially being true to the mission. You may be keen, to learn more about the institute, learn more about this particular aspect, which is the admissions process, for which I imagine our site has a fair bit of resources. So you have online resources. You might, of course, want to reach out on the phone center or the phone lines that we have, and some of our students are there to try and respond to some of the questions and the concerns and anxieties that new applicants might typically have. And yes, we also try and reach out by going and meeting out at a few locations. So there's this kind of menu of choices, really speaking, in terms of wanting to know more about the process, admission process, and more about the program. We believe this has worked well for us, and we think that's a way to go. And while we'd like to wish you luck with your whole process, this exercise that you're set out on, and do well in whatever you have in mind, and good luck.